Okay, let's get started. So I'm Dr. Jason Coe, and I'm teaching this lesson on research proposals, revising for publication, and writing a lot. So it's a lot of stuff to get through. So what I'm really going to be doing in this lecture, and I'm going to try to keep it short, is to guide you to the resources that you can use and explain what those resources offer. Okay, and the main thing I want to emphasize to you is writing is a practice, especially when it comes to writing, when it comes to academic writing. So that means you're not writing because it's not creative writing. You're not writing because you have inspiration. And even creative writers, they don't necessarily always write because they're inspired. They write because it's a regular practice that they do a lot. So the guides that I'm going to give you today are things that will show you how to do that writing and how to institute that practice. But in the end, you still have to do the work. Okay, and but that's the key. Is it's not, writing is hard, but it doesn't have to be so like arduous where you don't know what you're doing, like you're lost. It's more hard as in like going to the gym is hard. You just kind of have to go, and then you start the treadmill or you start doing the exercise, and you just have to keep going, and you just have to keep doing it. Okay, and these guides that I'm giving you will show you how to do that, and how to regularly do that. Okay, so think of this as like a writing workshop coaching. Okay, so let's talk about this is the outline for this lecture. Hopefully I can keep it as short as possible. So one, I'm going to talk about research proposals. So whether you're writing a dissertation, or you're writing a portfolio, or if you're writing research proposal for a PhD program that you're applying to, or an MPhil program, or even if you already have a PhD and you're writing for a grant, or you're sending in a proposal for a postdoc, they all follow the same kind of basic formula that I'm going to explain to you today. Okay, and everything that I'm teaching today I learned from these resources. Okay, so I'm just kind of reiterating these resources for you. Okay, next we're going to talk about writing for publication. So writing for publication is very different from writing for your classes, whether that's an undergraduate or a graduate program. Okay, writing for publication means there's a sort of higher standard, a different level of rigor. So your dissertation or your portfolio is the first time where you're writing something that's supposed to be published, right? Your dissertation will be published in the library. It'll be put onto the web so that people who want to find out more about your research topic can access it. Okay, so you are writing for publication. So I'm giving you resources that teach you how to do that. Okay, lastly is how to write a lot. Okay, so this is important because as you embark on your dissertation or your portfolio, you'll be writing more than you've ever written before. And so that's something to be excited about. And there's also ways to kind of make it so that that's a regular habit that you get used to doing. Okay, writing is a practice. It's something that you sit down and you do. Okay, it's not something that you're inspired or you creatively kind of magically come up with. Okay, it's actually something where you just sit down and you start moving your fingers on a keyboard. Okay, so you want to think about it like that, and how to write a lot. Okay, so all of these are accompanied by resources that I will provide to you. Okay, and also, if let's say like those aren't provided to you, you can still find these. Okay, whether they're through online resources or you can go buy these books. Okay, and I've been reading these for a very long time, so they're very useful. Okay, so we started off, and those of you who've already taken this class, it's very important that I always go back to this circle. Okay, and this circle is from Booth, the craft of research. Okay, and it's about this relationship between the practical problem and the research problem. Okay, and the one thing I want you to understand is that it's a circle. So you're always kind of going back around and around and around. Okay, and the reason that is because as you kind of solve the questions, you kind of get motivated to ask more research questions and more. Okay, so the previous lectures go into this in detail, but basically it's your practical problem motivates you to ask a research question, which then helps you define the research problem, and that research problem is actually what you actually write about and how you find a research answer, and that helps to solve the practical problem. So this part, the practical problem to the research problem, that's the stuff that you do on your own. That's the stuff you do in your notes that you're thinking about, right? And then that is what helps you come up with this, the research problem, which is actually what goes into your research proposal and your dissertation or your portfolio. So this part right here, this left side of the circle, is what you kind of write up. However, oftentimes you will write up this part and you'll realize, oh shoot, that's actually not that fascinating, and actually motivate you to find a new research question or a more specific one. Generally, it's one that's more specific, okay? And then you'll lead you back down this circle, and you keep going, okay? And then it's only you can really know when you're done or when you're going to have to close it off, okay? But the stuff I'm showing you will hopefully help you guide you down that road, okay? So a research problem is motivated not by palpable unhappiness, but by incomplete knowledge or flawed understanding. You solve it not by changing the world, but by understanding it better, okay? But by understanding the world better, then you might help to change the world, okay? So the research problem is not this, should be addressing something that's missing, this kind of gap in knowledge, okay? So if you have a gap in knowledge, how do you know that gap exists? That's why you need to do the literature review. So, please watch the previous videos on literature review and how to do that, okay? And also, not just how to read and study for the literature review, but how to write it up as a discussion, right? That leads to understanding the research problem. Okay, so here's an example of research argumentation. Now, this is important because in your research proposal, right, here's the kind of research proposal. You're going to have the dissertation abstract at the beginning, okay? Now, that you actually want to write at the end. Okay, after you've written this all, then you're going to go back and write that dissertation abstract. But this part, the rationale, the justification, okay, that's the research argumentation, okay? So basically you're saying, what am I studying? Okay, this is my topic. And why am I studying it? Because I want to find out something, okay? And what's the significance of that? What's the conceptual significance? And then what's the potential practical application? Okay, so one example that I've used that I took from the Booth reading, The Craft of Research, okay, is I'm studying the differences among various 19th century versions of the story of the Alamo. Why? Because I want to find out how politicians use stories of great events to shape public opinion. So what's the conceptual significance? In order to help readers understand how politicians use elements of popular culture to advance their political goals. So then what's the practical application? So that readers can better protect themselves from unscrupulous politicians. In the same way, then, you are also going to do this explanation in your introduction. So my topic, I am studying something because I want to find out something in order to help readers understand something. Now, that thing that you're helping them understand will be something about, conceptually important, okay? Like, how... In the previous example, it's how popular culture is used in political discourse. Okay, so that would be the conceptual significance. Your research also has conceptual significance. You need to explain that in your introduction. Okay, and that's part of developing your framework, right? So that's your rationale and your justification. Okay, now your topic description is your dissertation abstract. Okay, but basically you explain what is it that you're going to teach. Sorry, not teach, but yes, when you're writing, you are teaching, okay? So what is it that you're going to discuss, right? What's your topic? What's your rationale for studying that and the justification, okay? And what's the conceptual significance of that? So all research proposals have to have these things, okay? And a research proposal is quite long. Usually it's around at least, for the requirements for this program, at least 2,000 words. Okay, so that means it gives you a lot of room to really go into this rationale and the justification. And this is really what separates you from, your undergraduate work where you just kind of wrote your essay. You didn't have to explain why you need to write that essay. In fact, usually your teachers will give you an essay prompt or something like that. But now you need to write that essay prompt. You need to explain why it is that this essay needs to be written and why your readers need to read it. Okay, and then you write up the literature review, which, remember, is not just a summary of the literature that's been written before, but a discussion about, what other scholars have said about this topic. Why is it significant? Why is it important? And how that leads to your justification for your particular research intervention. Why is it that everyone else has written this, this, and this? So what are you going to add to that conversation? Okay. At the end of the dissertation proposal, so these first three parts, basically are like the introduction to any large research project, whether that's a journal article or a dissertation, or a book. Okay, and then you would have you need an outline. Okay, so usually if it's a dissertation, you might have sections or chapters. Like, section 1 will be about this text, and each section will have a particular argument, right, that supports the overall larger argument of the dissertation. Okay, which you are going to explain, right? You're going to argue. Okay. And then you need a research plan. Like, how are you going to how you going to implement this work. So after you write out your outline, maybe you're like, oh, I have 3 chapters. Chapter 1, argues this and looks at this text. Chapter 2 argues this and looks at this text. Chapter 3 argues this and looks at this text. And they should all build upon each other. And they need to go, they need to kind of be in that order for a specific reason. Okay, that whether or not you're organizing it chronologically or thematically, that's kind of up to you, and it's also based on your rationale and justification. Afterwards, your research plan then is going to kind of explain, I intend to write this part, this part, this part. Now, in the humanities, generally our research plan is when are you going to write it, okay? But, like in the social sciences or in other work, it's like, it'll be like, I'm going to gather data on from this month to this month, and then I'm going to do my analysis of that data from, and data entry from this month to this month, and then I'm going to do my write-up this month, okay? And then your anticipated result. So that's basically what you expect the argument to be of the overall dissertation. Okay, so it's like after conducting this research, I expect and it might not even be an expectation. You might already know what your result is. Okay, after doing this study or whatever. Okay, so how do you write that? Okay. So now I want to show you a template, okay? This is a foolproof research proposal template developed by Dr. Karen Kelsky, okay? So Dr. Karen Kelsky is a is a quite famous, at least internet famous, consultant for PhD and recent PhD graduates. So a lot of the things in academia do not get explained. So Dr. Karen Kelsky has this really great blog called The Professor Is In. I highly recommend you go to it, okay? Let's see. I'll just show it to you right now, okay? And she has a book, too, that's really good. I have to say that if it weren't for this blog and the book, I don't think I would have finished graduate school. It's got so much really useful information that you don't really know you need to know until you kind of, until you get into the program and you realize. So a lot of really important things like, book proposals, contracts, graduate student concerns, just a ton of stuff. Okay, so really important, research statements. Like, what is a research statement? All these kinds of things, all these explanations, how to deal with it. Okay, so I find it really useful. I recommend you go to it. If you're considering going into academia, I highly recommend you go to this blog, read as much of it as you can. Okay, and it really helps on the job market too. Okay, so like how to write a cover letter, these kinds of things, it's all in here. Okay, so I highly recommend you go to it. Now this is one particular piece of work that former professor, now a consultant, Dr. Karen Kelsky taught. It's a foolproof research proposal template. So you always need to explain and justify why it is that you want to do your research and what it's for. Okay, whether or not you're an MA student or you're an MPhil student or a PhD student or a postdoc or an assistant professor, an associate professor, or a full professor, you are always writing these proposals, basically explaining why it is that it's important. Okay, so I highly recommend that you check out this template. Okay, you can just go to this link, but you should get a link in the materials that I'm giving you. Okay, so this is it. Just follow this, right? And it should be around 2,000 words, right? But you start with this large general topic of wide interest, global warming, immigration, cancer, whatever, right? And then you have a brief reference to the literature, very, very brief. Okay, this is before you go into the big literature review. Brief, when it comes to global warming or immigration, some scholars have argued this, but other scholars have argued this. Okay, so just a very brief, like part 1 and the literature 1 and literature 2, and then you say, however, scholars in these fields have not yet adequately addressed, and then this is the gap in knowledge. The gap in knowledge. So you need to explain why it is that they have not addressed this particular thing, this gap in knowledge, and it's urgent. Okay, and you need to explain, this is a really bad gap, right? This really needs to be addressed in some way. But I will fill this gap. And I means you, right? You, the writer, okay, the researcher. And I'm applying to X, or I'm writing this dissertation, or, I'm going to do this research. And your research question, remember we said your research question up here, right? So your research question, and this is if, like, for example, someday maybe you will be applying to a PhD program. You're going to, when they ask you for a research statement, this is it. Okay. So then you're saying, I'm applying to the University of Hong Kong to support my research on blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now this part right here, all of this is just 2 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs. That's it. Okay. First paragraph, what's missing, the gap in knowledge. I will fill this gap. Then you say your research question. Okay. And then you give the specifics of your project. Okay. This is longer. Okay. And here's as many pages as they allow. So for the proposal for this, at least 2,000 words. Okay. So the background info, location, history. Most of the time, when you're applying to jobs or applying to schools or whatever, they're only going to read these first 2 paragraphs, and that's it. So that needs to be really strong. Okay? And you can already tell right from that beginning, how good this project is going to be, because they are able to clearly articulate what's missing and what it is that this research will do to address and fill in that gap. Okay? So then you give the specific of your project, and then you do the literature review. Okay? And it's multiple pages. It's thorough. It's accurate. It's relevant. Okay, so for more on literature review, go back to the other lectures that I've sent you in the other videos. Okay, and then you give your methodology, and this is very specific to your discipline. Okay, so your methodology, if you're working on literature, if you're working on film, then the methodology needs to fit that. Okay, then you give the timeline, a month-by-month plan of how you will complete it. And if you need a budget, okay, that's if you're doing a grant. Okay, sometimes you're asking for money. Okay, and then you have a strong conclusion. I expect this research to contribute to debates on XXXXX. Okay, and that might be something like your potential practical application. Okay, so I've asked many of you to constantly revise this part, because this is the basic fundamental structure of the proposal template. Okay, all right. So this is all you need. Okay, just follow these directions. But you need to do the work. So you won't. What is the gap in knowledge? You will not know until you actually do all your research. Like not all your research, but you've actually done all the study, all the literature review. So when I say literature review, I mean it in 2 ways. One is you actually review the literature. You read all the books you need to read, all the journal articles you need to read, all the study you need to do. And then there's the literature review, which you are actually writing a review of that literature in a sort of essay discussion form. Okay, like I said, watch the other video to understand how that works. Okay, and that's it. That's your proposal. But this is a genre that if you stay in academia, and maybe if you go into sales or some other corporate job or whatever, you're still going to be following this template in some way or another. Okay, you're always going to have to justify the work that you do to someone. Okay, so I recommend that you get very good at writing in this genre. Okay, all right, so that's it for research proposal. This is what you need to do. Okay, and all of this fits into this. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so now revising. All right, so what I want you to, so those of you who are doing a dissertation or a portfolio, you will likely be revising one of your or multiple ones of the essays you've already written for the MA program. And you will be revising it in order to get it ready for publication. So what I recommend that you do is you think of it as revising for a journal article. Okay, so the length of your portfolio and your dissertation, 7,500 to 10,000 to even 15,000 words, generally is the length of a journal article. Okay, so this book by Wendy Belcher and she's a great academic, but she's done a lot of advising to graduate students. So she wrote this book in 2009, and so I sent this to you in the materials. Writing your journal article in 12 weeks, a guide to publishing success. And this is actually written like a workbook. So you remember when you were in elementary school and you had like a workbook, that your teachers would work through, and every week you would go past one chapter and then another chapter and you do the worksheets? This is the same thing, okay? It's a workbook, okay? So let me show you the table of contents. I want you to go through this workbook, okay? And you can think of it as, very similar, because you have 12 weeks, right, to revise your work, right? You have 3 months to get your dissertation or your portfolio done. So I suggest you follow this plan, okay? So, and this teaches you how to do it, okay? The ones you don't need to do, right, is you don't need to select a journal, okay? But you do need to review the related literature, present your evidence, strengthen your structure, edit your sentences. You don't need to worry about sending your article, responding to journal decisions. But think of submitting to your advisor, or getting kind of responses as similar thing, okay? But just follow this through, okay? This book is really useful. I've used this to publish 2 essays, 2 journal articles, basically starting from scratch and be like, okay, I have this essay that I wrote and I really need to revise it into a journal article, and I just followed this workbook and it worked really well, okay? And the key ones to really pay attention to are things like advancing your argument. So you have common reasons why journals reject articles, okay? Reviewing the related literature. This goes back to the literature review, but this is really good. And then strengthening your structure, presenting your evidence. And those of you who don't know how to write conclusions or openings, okay, this gives you that as well, okay? So go through this workbook. What I've also done is I've created a kind of a worksheet, I guess you could say. I'm going to send this to you as well, where I kind of copied the different, exercises that she has you do, okay? Because she asks very specific questions. So it's like for weeks 1, 3, and 5, right? So 1 is designing your plan, 3 advancing your argument, 5 reviewing the related literature. So I turned that into 1 week, okay, like Unit A, Unit B. So does my article have problems with focus? If so, how am I going to revise it? And then I would just answer it. I would just be like, yes, my article, or for you it'll be an essay or your paper, right, has problems with focus. I will revise it by, and then I just write, okay? And then I just went through this entire workbook, and it actually helped me figure out exactly what I need to do to have my revisions ready so that I can get this done, okay? So this is a very easy thing where you just sit down and you just start answering these questions, okay? And answering these questions will make it significantly easier for you to write your article. So I have another article that I'm going to get ready to write, and I'll talk about, how we're going to do that. And I will be using this. So when you're doing this, I'm going to be doing this too, okay? So you have these materials as well, okay? But if you don't, those of you who are not who don't get this material, that's okay. You can get it from the book, okay? It's all in the book, actually. I just copied out these questions. It's like, here it is, my feelings about my experience of writing, common elements, negative feelings about writing, okay? So if you just follow this workbook, it'll get you through all the way to the end, okay? All right, so you'll have a copy of that template, okay? And then here's when you're choosing your essay or essays that you're going to revise for your dissertation or your portfolio. These are the questions you want to ask, okay? So I'm going to share this PowerPoint too, so you can go into this PowerPoint and copy paste these questions, right? So this one you definitely want to copy paste and put it somewhere where you can look at it all the time when you're revising, okay? But I think these are helpful questions. What type of argument does the essay make that you're going to revise? Is it descriptive? Is it theory? Is it interpretation? Okay? What makes the argument meaningful? That's important. And is it specific enough? Can it be applied to any text or just yours? Okay? What's the evidence for that argument? And then what are any problems or feedback you have on the essay? So, these are the things that maybe your professor said when they wrote back to you about your essay, like, you need to work on more specifics, or you need to use active voice or something like that, okay? These are the things that you can write down, and how will you use this, okay? So the key here is you're taking all of the feedback that you're getting, and you're seeing it as an opportunity. There's an opportunity to grow your essay, to grow as a writer, okay? And this all goes into this question of how are you going to write a lot, because you have to write a lot, okay? So very key to this is taking a growth mindset, right? Those of you who have taken my class before, I always emphasize a growth mindset. So any challenge is an opportunity to get better, okay? So don't think about it's like, how am I going to write this dissertation? How am I going to do this proposal? How am I going to write this journal article? Say things like, this is an opportunity. Imagine all the ways that it's going to improve me as a writer, as a thinker, as a scholar, okay? Now, you want to take that opportunity and take this challenge, right, to kind of grow as a thinker. And so you're going to see that, as a scholar, as a writer, okay? And you're going to see that with your essays as well. If you really take this challenge, and you apply this growth mindset and you use these tools that I'm giving you, okay, you will really grow. And you'll see it in your writing. Your writing will really grow. You know, many of you have come in and you're already experienced writers, but if you put in this work, you're going to be that much better than you were before just by doing this. And I can honestly say every time I sit down, I'm like, okay, I'm really going to commit myself to this process of writing as a practice. I improve that much more. Okay, so take that growth mindset. So part of growth mindset, you know, is you need to be committed to working hard. Writing is hard, okay? So anything that's hard means you have to do it a lot, okay? In order to get better. You wouldn't expect someone to just be able to play the violin or be able to cook, you know, or be able to, you know, I don't know, play basketball or, you know, run a marathon. It takes practice. Writing is the same. You have to write as a practice, okay? So another resource that I'm sharing with you is one by and this guy is this scholar, academic, I guess, is actually a psychology professor. Okay, so it's called A Practical Guide to Productive Academic Writing by Paul J. Silvia. How to write a lot. Okay, so I'll be sharing this with you as well, and it's very he doesn't really it's more it's almost like a self-help book. Okay, in terms of how to write a lot, it's very, very practical. But at the same time, he backs up his claims with empirical research done in the social sciences. Like, this actually is what works for writing, okay? And this is basically it. But you should read that, okay? It's a really easy read, okay? Writing is a behavior. It's a set of practices. It's the same. It's no different from sitting down at a chair, slapping your fingers against the keyboard, blah, 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 to generate paragraphs. And you can foster these behaviors using simple strategies. So basically, by writing every day or, you know, or scheduling at a writing time, you will become a better writer. Okay. So another thing I'll be sending you is this time management schedule. Okay. A lot of these, I got these from the UNC Writing Center. Okay. So I'll send you a link as well. But the UNC Writing Center is this great webpage. Whoever funded this and the grant that went into doing this is just so helpful to so many people around the world. Okay, so this writing center has a lot of really great stuff, stuff that you might need for specific writing assignments or contexts. Okay, you know, writing for specific fields. Okay, writing specific parts of the paper, particular types of writing assignments. So for those, you know, we talked about grant proposal, research proposal, you know, cover letters, resumes, okay? And the one that you really should read is the one on the literature review, and I'm actually sending you that one, okay? But even things like procrastination, you know, writing anxiety, these kinds of things, how to create writing groups, it's all here, okay? So the resources are at your disposal. You just need to put in that butt time, okay? Your butt in the chair, your fingers at the keyboard, and you are writing, okay? All right, so you just need to practice. That's it, and that's how you become a better writer, okay? So one of the things I got from that UNC thing is a time management schedule, okay? So basically, you just break down your day, you know, every week into very, very specific hours, okay? So here's a blank one. I'm sending you both, right? So you can see every time it's here it says dissertation, that's the time that you write. Now, even if you're sitting there and you're just staring at your computer and you feel like you're not making any room, that's okay. Just keep going. If you spent 10 to noon or 10 to 1 p.m. on Monday writing, even if you didn't get a lot done, you sat there and you did it. And that's something to be proud of, okay? And you want to do that, and you want to schedule this in. So it's all scheduling, okay? It's scheduling and commitment, okay? Commitment to keeping that schedule, right? So these are the excuses that people generally give when they are not able to write a lot. And writing a lot that's the way you're going to make it. If you really want to make it, you know, to have a good dissertation, you need to write so much that you're able to revise it down to the things that are really good, okay? So these are the excuses that people make, like, I don't have enough time. I can't find the time to do it. So that's kind of an excuse, right? So with growth mindset, we're thinking instead of finding excuses, we're finding solutions, okay? So instead of can't find time, you make time. You allot time to it by making a schedule and sticking to it, okay? So, you know, I'm going to send you this, and you should make something like this, right? So 7 to 8 a.m. And some of you might be night owls, right? So maybe it'll be like midnight, 1, 2, 3 a.m., right? So maybe you wake up at 9 or 10 or whatever, right? Wake up, you know, grab a cup of coffee, write write, and then, listen to Dr. Ko's lecture, take notes, right? And then read this, and then go to class, right? And then, you're done for the day. And really, all you need, if you want to get your dissertation done, or your portfolio done, or a journal article, if you write 2 hours a day, you'll get it done in no time. No time, okay? 2 hours a day, you get it done in no time, okay? So this is the schedule of a very successful writer, right? And look how much, and this is someone who also teaches, who also has a family, right? And does all this stuff, right? So, and they also have to grade, okay? And look at it's just dissertation, right? Dissertation. Just make that time. 2 hours a day, that's it. If you do 2 hours a day for 12 weeks, you're gonna, I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee anything, okay? But I think you have a very high chance of not only finishing it, but doing a really good job, okay? And remember, the key is not, who's the smartest. It's not who comes up with the best ideas. It's not who's the most creative. It's who puts in the most work. And those people who put in that work and that time are the ones who will have really, really quality kind of things to show after they complete their MA, okay? All right, so, excuse number 2. I need more time. I need to read, analyze, or research more. You know what? That's fine. We always need to read or write more, okay? So you should research and read during your writing time, okay? So if you said these 3 hours you're going to be writing, but you still need to read, then read during that time. And what you want to do is you want to read as you write, okay? Research as you write, and write as you read. So go back to my previous lecture on writing up and note taking, and I show some sort of tips on how to write and how to read and take notes in a way that sort of helps you construct and write at the same time, okay? And it all counts. If you're researching and you're writing, and you're reading stuff that is part of your dissertation or part of your portfolio, or part of your journal article, then it counts. That's work that you did. So that's something you can count and say, I did that, okay? And you can sort of create, if you want, you can create a spreadsheet even, of the amount of time that you take, So for me, when I was really trying to step up my sort of game when it comes to writing, I sort of said, okay, I don't care how much I write or whether or not I get things done. I just want to know how many hours I spend writing every single month. And I set myself sort of hourly kind of goals, okay? Like I wanted to write, if I could write, real writing, like 60 to 80 hours in 1 month, And by then, it's like once you get up to the 60 to 80 or whatever, you find like actually all my writing assignments are getting done and done on time and done well, okay? So, you can't think about it in terms of inspiration, okay? So another thing to think about is like sometimes an excuse is like, oh, I have writer's block. I don't know what to write. I don't feel inspired, okay? So another thing that they found with studies is real people who are professional writers don't write based on inspiration. Whether they're inspired or not, they just write, okay? And the key is that it's actually routine. So I'll put it like this so it looks better. Routine is more important than inspiration. Okay? Inspiration, and the more you write, the more inspired you'll get. I don't know if you've noticed this, but maybe when you've been writing a paper, as you write, you realize, you come up with more ideas and more ideas and more ideas. The more you write, the more inspiration you'll get. Okay? So instead of thinking about, I need inspiration, you want to write based on this kind of clock and the scheduled commitment. Okay? One easy way to think about this is, you're not waiting for inspiration, okay? You're like, imagine you're like a painter, right? And you're like, I want to be inspired. So one day you go out and you see a beautiful sunrise. You're like, I'm going to paint this sunrise, okay? You are not that kind of writer. You are now an academic writer. And academic writers are not like the painters who go out and paint a sunrise. Academic writers are like painters that go to a house and paint the house, right? They paint the wall, they paint the windows, they paint the inside walls, okay? That's the kind of painting that you do now. That's the kind of writing that you do now. You are writing for volume, okay? And the more volume you write, the better your writing will be, okay? All right, so the more you write, the more inspired you will be. So if you need inspiration, if you have writer's block, you know what? Just sit down in front of your computer and just start writing things that, or taking notes on your research or whatever, and just keep, start getting that flow out, and don't leave until you hit that time frame. Okay? If as long as you're sitting in front of your computer writing, okay, then that's fine. Even if you only write one sentence, if it took you 2 hours to write that sentence, that's fine. That's totally fine. Okay? As long as you just keep going, keep writing, okay? And based on the clock. Lastly, you want to set really concrete writing goals, okay? Concrete writing goals are things like, I'm going to write 200 words. I'm going to write one paragraph, okay? I'm going to introduce this piece of text and analyze it and explain its argument. Okay, you want concrete writing goals. I'm going to incorporate these revisions, or, and these things count. Okay, this counts toward your writing, but I'm going to fill in my time management schedule, or I'm going to do, where's that template that I opened? Where is it? Yes. I'm going to do Unit A, weeks 1 through 5. I'm going to answer all the week 3 questions. That's it. So if for 2 hours on your first day, all you do is answer these questions, that's writing. That counts, okay? So you just keep doing that. Keep plugging away, okay? And pretty soon, it'll all just sort of start melding together, okay? And you always want to be going back to looking at this circle and looking at this, okay? In order to fill in everything in this, okay? All right, so you've got the tools, okay? Now you just need to put in that time, okay? But remember, whether it's me or your other professors, all of us are going through this. All of us are basically like, how am I going to get myself to write a lot, okay? And they're putting in that work, and they're managing their schedule, okay? It's not about inspiration. It's not about being, whether you're a native speaker or, it's not about, how much writing skill you have or you're born with or whatever. It's about how much work you put in to improve on it right now, okay? So I wish you good luck, and those of you, I will talk with you in class, whether that's on Zoom or whatever, and, write down all the questions that you may have. Maybe you can, if you're in a class with me, you can put your questions in the forum and I'll answer that. If you're in a portfolio or writing workshop with me, then save your questions and I'll answer them then. Okay, all right, that's it. Good luck, and start writing. Bye.